fresh start, and luckily we have the space. His mother cried into a linen napkin like she had just been handed the keys to heaven. His sister clapped. My father stopped carving the turkey. My mother went completely still, and I smiled, because what nobody at that table knew was that his mother's boxes were already in my garage. His sister's overnight bag was already in my guest room. My husband had already given them the smart lock code behind my back. And for 3 months, money had been disappearing from our joint account for home updates that had never happened. He looked at me like I was supposed to be grateful for the privilege of losing my own home politely. So I let him finish his toast. Then I stood up. And by the time dessert came out, his mother had lost the room, his sister had lost her free ride, and my husband finally understood the difference between being married to someone and owning them. My name is Natalie Brooks. I'm 34 years old, and for most of my marriage, I thought being calm made me strong. I was wrong. Sometimes calm is just what survival looks like when you've been trained not to make a scene. I live outside Knoxville, Tennessee in a small brick ranch house with white shutters, a creaky porch swing, and a red maple tree in the front yard that turns the whole lawn gold every October. That house is not huge. It is not fancy. It has 2 full bathrooms, 3 bedrooms, a kitchen with 1 cabinet that never closes right, and a laundry room so narrow you have to turn sideways if the dryer door is open. But to me, it was everything. It was the first place where I could breathe. It was the first front door where nobody could tell me I was just visiting. It was the only major thing in my life that had my name on it before I became somebody's wife. My parents bought it for me when I was 27, not because they were rich. They were not. My father drove a city bus for 31 years. He knew every route in Knoxville, every pothole, every regular passenger who got on with exact change in a story. My mother worked in the office of a dental clinic, answering phones, filing insurance forms, and bringing home those tiny toothbrushes dentists give children. They saved quietly. No vacations to Florida. No new cars. No kitchen remodel. My mother wore the same winter coat for 9 years because, as she always said, a warm coat doesn't need to impress anybody. I did not know what they were doing until 2 months before my wedding. They invited me over for Sunday dinner. Roast chicken, green beans, cornbread, sweet tea, sweating in glasses on the table. After we ate, my father cleared his throat and slid a folder toward me. Inside was the deed to the house on Alder Lane, paid in full. In my maiden name, Natalie Ann Brooks. My mother cried before I did. My father tapped the folder with 2 fingers and said, "Baby marriage is love. A house is shelter. Don't ever confuse the two." At the time, I thought he was being old-fashioned. Maybe even a little harsh. I was engaged. I was happy. I was marrying a man who brought me coffee at work, opened doors, and told my parents he would always protect me. I looked at my father and said, "Dad, Evan isn't like that." My father only nodded. "I hope not," he said. But paper doesn't care about hope. That sentence stayed in the back of my mind for years. I didn't know it would one day save me. My husband, Evan Miller, was charming in the way people are when they have practiced being liked. He worked in sales for a regional medical supply company. He was handsome, confident, always clean-shaven, always smelling faintly of cedar cologne. He could talk to strangers like he had known them since kindergarten. When we first dated, he made me feel chosen. He remembered little things. My favorite coffee. The fact that I hate olives, the name of the teacher who embarrassed me in 7th grade. The song I played on repeat when I was stressed. I was working as an elementary school counselor then, and I still do. My days were full of anxious kids, angry parents, quiet lunches at my desk, and the kind of emotional exhaustion nobody sees because children's pain does not come with office hours. Evan made life feel easier at first. He made reservations. He planned weekend drives. He texted, "Did you eat today?" After years of being the dependable daughter, the steady friend, the woman everyone came to when their life caught fire, being cared for felt like sinking into warm water. So when small things started feeling wrong, I explained them away. The first small thing was his mother. Her name was Patricia Miller, but she preferred Patty because she said Patricia sounded like someone's mean librarian. Patty was 62, widowed, and carried her grief like a purse she wanted everyone to notice. Her husband had died when Evan was 19, and his younger sister, Marissa, was 14. From the way Patty told it, his death had not only taken a husband from her, it had taken her future, her status, her sense of being cared for. I felt sorry for her. Truly, I lost my grandmother young, and I understood how grief can turn ordinary rooms into museums. But Patty did not want sympathy. She wanted compensation. And slowly she began treating my life like the universe's apology to her. At first, it was harmless. She came over on Sundays after church. She brought banana pudding. She folded dish towels wrong, but with enthusiasm. She told me I was just the sweetest thing for making her son so happy. Then she started coming every Sunday. Then every Saturday and Sunday. Then some Fridays just to beat traffic, even though she lived 20 minutes away. Evan never asked me if that was okay. He would just say, "Mom's stopping by," like he was announcing rain. When I told him I wanted advance notice before guests came over, he looked at me like I had suggested abandoning an old woman on the interstate. "She's my mother, Nat." That was always the sentence. "She's my mother." As if biology were a master key. One Sunday, I came home from the grocery store and found Patty rearranging my kitchen. Not wiping counters, not helping with dishes. Rearranging. She had moved the coffee mugs to a lower cabinet because, in her words, this makes more sense for everyone. Everyone. There were 2 people living in that house. Neither of them was Patty. I put the mugs back after she left. The next weekend, she moved them again. When I told Evan, he laughed. "She's nesting. Let her feel useful," I said. In my kitchen, he smiled, kissed my forehead, and said, "Our kitchen." I remember that kiss because it was the first time affection felt like a lid being pressed over my mouth. Then there was Marissa. Evan's sister was 31, a hairstylist when she felt like working, an influencer when she felt like not working, and a victim whenever bills were due. She was funny, loud, pretty, and exhausting. She called herself free-spirited, which mostly meant she did not bring her wallet anywhere. She treated my house like a lounge. She showed up unannounced with the iced coffee and no plans to leave. She ate the meal prep I made for my work lunches. She borrowed sweaters and returned them smelling like perfume I didn't own. One afternoon, I came home early from school because a stomach bug was going around, and I found Marissa filming a TikTok in my bedroom mirror. My bedroom. She was wearing my cream cardigan. The caption on her draft said, "Soft life era in my cozy little home." My cozy little home. I stood in the doorway until she noticed me. She jumped. "Oh my God, Nat, you scared me." I looked at my cardigan. "Why are you in my bedroom?" She rolled her eyes like I had asked why she was breathing. I needed better light. I called Evan at work. He sighed. Not surprised. Annoyed? "Can we not make this a whole thing?" I said. "Your sister is filming content in our bedroom wearing my clothes." He said, "She looks up to you?" Number. She looked through me. There is a difference. After that, I put a lock on the bedroom door. Not a dramatic one. Just a simple keyed lock. Evan noticed that night. He stood in the hallway holding the key I had not given him and said, "Are we roommates now?" I said no. Roommates usually ask before bringing people over. He didn't speak to me for the rest of the evening. Instead, he called his mother from the garage. I could hear his voice through the door, low and wounded. "She's just been different lately." That became the new family story. Natalie had changed. Natalie was tense. Natalie was controlling. Natalie didn't understand family. Nobody ever said Evan had changed. Nobody said Patty was crossing lines. Nobody said Marissa was treating my home like a dressing room. The problem was not what they were doing. The problem was that I had started noticing. 6 months before the Thanksgiving dinner that ended my marriage, Patty's apartment complex announced a rent increase. You would have thought a natural disaster had struck. She called Evan crying. Then she called me crying. Then she posted on Facebook, praying for guidance. Some seasons teach you who really shows up. That post got 82 reactions. By dinner, Evan was quiet. Too quiet. I asked what was wrong. He pushed food around his plate and said, "Mom's scared." I know. She can't keep living like this. Like what? In uncertainty. I looked around my kitchen. The kitchen my parents had bought through decades of getting up before sunrise. "What are you saying?" He leaned back. "I'm saying maybe we need to think bigger." I waited. He rubbed his face. She could stay here for a while. There it was, softly placed in the middle of the table like a casserole nobody wanted. I said, "For how long?" He looked offended by the question. "Why do you always need a deadline?" "Because for a while is how people move in without saying they moved in." He stood up, carried his plate to the sink and said, "She raised me by herself." I said, "And my parents bought this house by themselves." He turned around. "That's low." "No, that's accurate." His face hardened. "You act like the house makes you better than us." That sentence stunned me. Not because it was loud, because it was honest. I had never acted like the house made me better than anyone. But they had decided my ownership was arrogance because it stood between them and what they wanted. The next week, Patty started leaving things behind. A cardigan on the chair, reading glasses on the coffee table, a bottle of vitamins in the kitchen cabinet. Then a framed photo of Evan as a child appeared on the guest room dresser. I had not put it there. When I asked Evan about it, he said Mom said the guest room felt cold. The guest room is for guests. She is a guest. Then why is she decorating? He walked away. 2 weeks later, I came home from work and found a new quilt on the guest bed. Floral. Pink. Very Patty. There were 3 blouses hanging in the closet. My stomach dropped. Not because 3 blouses are dangerous. Because 3 blouses are a flag. I pulled them out, folded them, and placed them in a bag by the front door. When Patty arrived the following Sunday, she saw the bag. Her face folded into hurt so quickly, I almost admired the speed. "Oh," she whispered. "I didn't realize I was such a burden." Evan put an arm around her. I stood there, holding my purse, still in my work clothes, still smelling like cafeteria pizza and hand sanitizer. I said, "You're not a burden, but you do not live here." Patty looked at Evan. Not at me, at Evan, like I was a hotel employee refusing a reservation. He said, "Natalie, can we not embarrass my mom?" I laughed once. Just once. "Your mother brought clothes to my guest room. I'm not the embarrassing part." Patty cried. Marissa, who had come over for free dinner, immediately hugged her. Evan glared at me. And just like that, I became the villain in my own entryway. That night, after they left, Evan told me I had humiliated him. I said no. I refused to be quietly invaded. He said, "Invaded, listen to yourself. This is why Mom says you're cold." I remember feeling something inside me go still. Not break. Still. I said, "Your mother discusses me with you like I'm an obstacle." He said, "Maybe stop acting like one." That was the first night I slept in the guest room, on my own sheets, under Patty's floral quilt because I was too tired to change it. The next phase was the money. For most of our marriage, Evan and I had a joint household account. We both kept separate personal checking accounts, but we contributed every month for groceries, utilities, insurance repairs, and shared expenses. I handled the bills because I was better at details. Evan used to joke that I could spot a missing receipt from across the room. He stopped joking when I started asking questions. In September, I noticed our joint account was lower than it should have been. At first, I assumed it was groceries. Everything costs more now. Even eggs feel like they need financing. Then I saw 3 payments to a company called Miller Home Care Services. $2,800, $3,150, $1,900. The memo line said things like accessibility, updates, bathroom safety, and storage prep. I stared at the screen. No one had updated my bathroom. No one had added safety bars. No one had prepared storage unless you counted Patty slowly colonizing my guest room. I asked Evan that night. He was on the couch watching a football game, one hand in a bowl of chips, completely relaxed. "What is Miller Home Care Services?" He did not look at me. "Just some stuff for Mom." "What stuff?" "Don't start." There was that phrase again. Different family, same training manual. I sat down in the armchair. That money came from the household account. He paused the TV. "Finally, she needs help. Then you should have used your personal account." He laughed like I was being childish. "We're married." "Yes, to each other, not to your mother." His face darkened. You know, most wives would be proud their husband takes care of his mom. Most husbands would ask before taking thousands from a joint account. He stood. "It's not thousands." I held up my phone. "It is." He walked into the kitchen and started opening cabinets like he had lost something. That was Evan's tell. When he was cornered, he performed busyness. I said, "What did the money pay for?" He slammed a cabinet. "A storage unit, okay? Some furniture, a lift chair, a deposit." "A deposit for what?" He did not answer. I felt the room tilt. "Evan." He turned around. "For Mom's transition." Transition. Such a gentle word for trespassing. I said, "Into my house." He exploded. "Our house. God, Natalie, do you hear yourself? We are married. You don't get to hold a roof over my head every time you want control." I went very quiet. "I have never held this house over your head. You do it every day." "How?" "By making sure everyone knows it's yours." I looked at him. "Because it is." That was the moment I realized he didn't want partnership. He wanted me to stop knowing what belonged to me. After that, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. I checked the Smart Lock app. There were 2 new access codes. One labeled PM, One labeled M, Patty Miller, Marissa, both active, both created by Evan, both used when I was at work. My hands went cold. I opened the camera app for the porch camera my father had installed after a rash of package thefts in the neighborhood. There was Patty entering my home on a Tuesday morning with a tote bag and a rolling suitcase. There was Marissa coming in Thursday afternoon holding what looked like a laundry basket. There was Evan helping them carry boxes into the garage. My garage. While I was at school helping a 7-year-old explain why he hit another child because his father had left that weekend. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time with my laptop open. The house was silent except for the refrigerator humming. And in that silence, I finally heard the truth. They had already moved in. Not fully, not officially, but enough. Enough to test the walls. Enough to see what I would tolerate. Enough to make the final announcement feel like a formality. I did not confront Evan that night. That is important. The old me would have confronted him immediately. The old me would have cried, demanded, argued, begged him to admit he had crossed a line. The old me believed that if someone understood how badly they hurt me, they would stop. But some people understand perfectly. They just disagree that your pain should matter more than their convenience. So I did something different. I took screenshots. I downloaded statements. I photographed the boxes in the garage. I wrote down dates. Then I called my parents. My mother answered on the second ring. "Hey, honey." The sound of her voice almost broke me. I said, "Can you and Dad come to Thanksgiving at my house this year?" She paused. "We thought you were going to Evan's aunt's place. Plans changed." Another pause. This one heavier. "Natalie, what happened?" I looked around the kitchen. At the mugs, Patty kept moving. At the grocery list, where Evan had written Mom's almond creamer. At the drawer where I kept the deed. I said, "I think I need you there." My mother did not ask a single unnecessary question. She said, "We'll be there." Then I called Evan's Aunt Linda and invited her too. That may sound strange, but Aunt Linda was different. She was Patty's older sister, and she had the terrifying honesty of a retired librarian who had spent 40 years shushing liars. She loved Patty, but she saw her clearly. When I invited her, she said, "Is this about Patricia trying to move in?" I closed my eyes. "So you knew." "Oh, sweetheart," she said. "Patty has been telling people you invited her." My chest tightened. She said I invited her. She said you and Evan felt called to give her the family home she never got to keep. The family home. I nearly dropped the phone. Aunt Linda continued, "I told her that was a funny way to describe a house your parents bought." I laughed then. Not because it was funny. Because one person saying the obvious can feel like oxygen. I asked, "Will you come?" She said I wouldn't miss it. The week before Thanksgiving, Patty became sweet. Too sweet. She texted me every morning. "Thinking of you, honey. Hope school is gentle today. Can't wait to spend the holiday together as a real family." A real family. As if the previous version where I owned my own house and controlled my own door code had been counterfeit. Marissa posted an Instagram story from my front porch. My front porch. She must have taken it while I was at work. She was holding a latte, wearing sunglasses captioned, "Entering my peaceful era. Sometimes God restores what your family lost." I stared at that post in the school parking lot until my vision blurred. What your family lost. There it was again. The house Patty lost decades ago had become a ghost haunting mine. But grief does not give you squatter's rights. I saved the story. Then I changed the smart lock codes. All of them. Evan's code still worked. Patty's did not. Marissa's did not. At 4:18 that afternoon, my phone lit up. Patty. I let it ring. Then Evan. Then Marissa. Then Evan again. Finally, a text from him. "Did you change the lock?" I replied, "Yes." He wrote, "Mom is outside with groceries." I wrote, "Then you can meet her outside." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared. You're being unbelievably cruel. I stared at that word. Cruel. Not secretive. Not dishonest. Not entitled. Cruel. Because I changed the lock on my own door. I did not reply. That night, Evan came home with his mother behind him. Patty was carrying 2 paper bags from Trader Joe's and wearing the expression of a woman arriving at her own funeral. She said I brought things for Thanksgiving. I looked in the bags. Sparkling cider, cranberry goat cheese, a scented candle, and a stack of mail addressed to her at my house. I picked up the envelopes. "Why is your mail coming here?" Evan said quickly, "It's temporary." Patty whispered I needed a stable address. I looked at him. "You changed her mailing address to my home." He rubbed his forehead. "Can we not do this in the doorway?" I said. "That depends. Are there more surprises coming through it?" Patty's eyes filled with tears. You know, Natalie, I used to pray for the woman my son would marry. I prayed she would have a soft heart. I held the mail out to her. I prayed for a husband who wouldn't move his mother into my house in installments. I guess we're both disappointed. Evan snapped enough. There it was again. Enough. The word men use when they are done hearing the consequences of their own choices. I gave Patty back her mail. You need to forward this somewhere else. She took it with shaking hands. Not because she was fragile, because she was furious. Then she said the sentence that made my decision final. You know, a house this size is wasted on a woman who won't even have children. The room went silent. Evan looked down, not shocked, not angry on my behalf, embarrassed that she had said it out loud. That hurt more than the sentence itself. Because Evan and I had tried for a baby for nearly 2 years. I had lost one pregnancy at 9 weeks. We had not told many people. Patty knew. And she had chosen the sharpest knife in the drawer. I looked at Evan. I waited. Say something, I thought. Just once. Choose me. He said, Mom's upset. That was it. 2 words. Mom's upset. I felt my last excuse for him leave my body. I turned to Patty. You should go. She looks stunned. Evan said, Natalie. I said, now. He slept on the couch that night. I slept in my bedroom with the door locked. For the first time in my marriage, I was not afraid of losing him. I was afraid of what I had already lost by keeping him. Thanksgiving morning came bright and cold. I woke up at 6, made coffee, and stood barefoot in the kitchen while the turkey thawed in the sink. The house looked beautiful. I had cleaned every room. I had set the table with my mother's blue plates. I had placed small pumpkins down the center and tucked sprigs of rosemary into folded napkins. To anyone else, it would have looked like I was preparing for a normal holiday. I was not. I was preparing for a boundary to become visible. Before anyone arrived, I took my father's old manila folder from the desk drawer. The deed, the gift letter, a copy of the smart lock access log, bank statements showing the home care payments, screenshots of Marissa's porch post, photos of Patty's boxes in the garage. Not because I wanted to turn dinner into a courtroom. I didn't. But in families like Evan's, truth without proof gets called attitude. So I put the folder on the empty chair beside me. Then I took 3 slow breaths. I decided what I would not do. I would not scream. I would not insult anyone's grief. I would not let Patty use widowhood as a crowbar. I would not let Evan call theft help. I would not let Marissa turn my porch into content. And I would not apologize for protecting the only home that had ever truly been mine. Guests arrived in waves. My parents came first. My father carried a pecan pie and the same quiet, watchful expression he used whenever a bus passenger looked like trouble. My mother hugged me longer than usual. She did not ask questions in the doorway. She just whispered, "We're here." Then Aunt Linda arrived in a wool coat holding a casserole dish and wearing red lipstick sharp enough to cut glass. She patted my shoulder and said I brought green bean casserole and a willingness to tell the truth. I almost cried. Then Patty arrived. She wore cream knit pearl earrings and the tender smile of a woman who expected witnesses to improve her odds. Marissa came behind her with a ring light bag slung over one shoulder. A ring light. To Thanksgiving. I looked at it. She said, "For family photos." I said, "Not inside." She rolled her eyes. Evan came in last from the garage where he had been checking something. He avoided my parents' gaze. That told me he knew this was going to be bad. He just still believed he could win. Dinner began almost normally. That was the eerie part. People passed rolls. My father complimented the turkey. Aunt Linda asked Marissa how work was, and Marissa gave a 6-minute answer that did not include employment. Patty told a story about Evan as a little boy building a blanket fort, and everyone smiled politely. Evan squeezed my knee under the table, a warning disguised as affection. I moved my leg away. He looked at me. I looked back. For once, he looked away first. After dinner, while the pie sat untouched on the counter, Evan stood. He tapped his glass with a spoon. The sound was light. The room became heavy. "I just want to say something," he began. My mother's hand found my father's under the table. Patty lowered her eyes like she was preparing for sainthood. Marissa lifted her phone. Aunt Linda said, "Put that down." Marissa blinked. "What?" "Your phone," Aunt Linda said. "Down." For once, Marissa obeyed. Evan smiled, though the edges were tight. "This year has reminded me what family really means," he said. "It means showing up. It means sacrifice. It means not letting pride get in the way of doing what's right." He looked at me. I smiled. Not warmly, but enough to make him continue. My mom has had a hard few years, he said. And Natalie and I have been blessed with more space than we need. So we've decided that Mom will be moving in with us after Christmas. Patty covered her mouth. Marissa whispered, finally. My father stopped moving. Evan kept going. We'll be turning the guest room into her room, and Marissa will always have a place here too, especially while she gets back on her feet. I know it's a big transition, but this is what family does. Then he looked at me. Right, babe. There it was. The hook. The public corner. The performance. He expected me to smile because everyone was watching. He expected me to surrender because surrender looks better at Thanksgiving than truth. I stood up, slowly. I picked up the manila folder. The room went so quiet I could hear the refrigerator kick on. I said no. One word, small enough to fit in a glass, heavy enough to crack the table. Evan laughed softly. Nat, come on, I said. No, Evan, your mother is not moving into my house. Patty's face changed. The tears vanished first, then the softness. What did you just say? I looked at her. I said you are not moving into my house. Evan's jaw tightened. Our house. I opened the folder. No. That is the sentence we are correcting today. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I pulled out the deed and held it up. This house was purchased by my parents before I married Evan. The deed is in my maiden name. My parents gave it to me as my separate home because they wanted me to have security. My father cleared his throat. That is correct. His voice was calm, not loud, but final. Patty's eyes darted to Evan. Marissa said, That's so weird. Like, who gets married and keeps score like that? Aunt Linda turned toward her. Adults with assets, sweetheart. Marissa shut her mouth. Evan's face flushed. Natalie, nobody is arguing about paperwork. You are. Every time you say our house to justify giving access to people I did not invite. He stepped closer to the table. This is humiliating. I looked around. Yes. Being publicly corrected after publicly lying usually is. Patty gasped. I did not lie. I pulled out the smart lock log. You told people I invited you to move in. But here are the access codes Evan created for you and Marissa without my consent. Here are the dates you entered while I was at work. Here are photos of your boxes in my garage. Here is your mail addressed to this house. My mother's face tightened. My father looked at Evan in a way I had never seen before. Not angry. Disappointed. That was worse. Patty's voice shook. I am a widow. I am alone. I nodded. I know. My son wants to take care of me. I know. I lost my home. I know. She leaned forward. Then how can you be so selfish? There it was. The sentence that makes audiences lean toward the screen. The sentence people use when compassion does not produce obedience. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, because your grief is not a deed to my house. Aunt Linda closed her eyes like she had been waiting years to hear that. Patty's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Evan snapped, that's enough. I turned to him. No, we are finally getting to enough. I pulled out the bank statements. Since September, money has been leaving our joint household account for something called Miller Home Care Services. You told me it was for your mom's needs. What you did not tell me was that the money went toward a storage unit, furniture delivery fees, and deposits for a move into this house. I never approved. Evan rubbed his face. Jesus, Natalie. No. You don't get to act exhausted by the truth. You are not too tired to hide it. Marissa leaned back. So, what you're mad he helped his mom. I looked at her. I'm mad that my husband used shared money and secret door codes to move his mother and sister into a house that belongs to me while all of you plan to pressure me into accepting it at Thanksgiving. She scoffed. You make everything sound so dramatic. Aunt Linda said, It is dramatic, Marissa. That's why you were filming. Marissa's face went red. My mother stood then, quietly. She walked to the kitchen, picked up Marissa's ring light bag, and placed it by the front door. Nobody laughed. Nobody needed to. Evan lowered his voice. Natalie, can we talk privately? I looked at him. Number. His eyes flashed. So, you're just going to shame me in front of everyone. You announced your mother was moving into my home in front of everyone. I'm responding in the same room you chose. Patty began crying again. But this time nobody moved to comfort her. Not even Aunt Linda. Especially not Aunt Linda. Patty said, I loved this family. I gave everything for my children. And now I am being treated like trash by a woman who has more house than heart. My father's chair scraped back. He stood slowly. My father was not an aggressive man. He drove buses. He fixed porch railings. He ate toast over the sink. But when he spoke, every person at that table listened. My wife and I spent 30 years saving for that house, he said. We gave it to our daughter because we wanted her safe. Not generous, not available. Safe. Patty wiped under her eyes. I never meant to take anything. My father looked at the folder. You brought boxes. The room went dead silent. That was my father. Plain words. No decoration. No escape. Evan, said Mr. Brooks with all due respect. My father cut him off. You lost the privilege of that tone when you gave your mother a code to my daughter's door. Evan looked at me then. Not with love, with resentment. You planned this. I nodded. Yes. He seemed stunned. You set me up. No. I let you speak your plan out loud. My mother whispered Natalie. I looked at her, afraid for a second that she was going to tell me to soften. Instead, she said, keep going. So I did. I looked at Evan. I want you to understand what broke this marriage. It was not your mother needing help. It was not Marissa being immature. It was not even the money. His face twisted. Then what was it? You believe my no was a problem to solve instead of an answer to respect. The room went still again. Because some truths do not need volume. Evan's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time all night, he had no sentence ready. I continued. I would have helped your mother look for housing. I would have helped organize bills. I would have cooked meals. I would have visited. I would have cared. But you didn't want my care. You wanted my house. Patty said, that is cruel. No, I said, it is accurate. Then I turned to Marissa. And you. You are not welcome to come here without an invitation. You are not welcome to film in my home. You are not welcome to wear my clothes, eat my work lunches, or use my bedroom mirror as a backdrop for pretending you have a peaceful life. Her lips parted. I never. You posted from my porch last week. She looked down. I looked back at Evan. I changed the locks. After tonight, your code will be removed too. He went pale. What? You heard me. You can't kick me out of my own house. I felt the old fear rise. The old training. The part of me that wanted to say, I don't mean right now. But I did mean right now. And I was done cushioning reality so he could land softly. This is not your house, I said. And tonight you proved you cannot be trusted inside it. Patty stood. Her chair scraped hard against the floor. This is unbelievable. Aunt Linda finally spoke. No, Patricia. What's unbelievable is that you thought grief made you entitled to another woman's roof. Patty turned on her. You're my sister. I know, Aunt Linda said. That's why I'm tired. Marissa grabbed her purse. This family is insane. My mother said, take your ring light. Marissa snatched the bag from the foyer and stormed outside. Patty followed, crying loudly now, not because she was broken, but because the room had stopped rewarding the performance. Evan did not follow immediately. He stood there staring at me. You're really choosing a house over me. That sentence almost worked. Almost. Because for a split second, I saw our first date. The flowers. The coffee. The way he held my hand outside the movie theater. The man I thought I married. Then I saw Patty's mail on my counter. Marissa in my cardigan. The bank statements. The boxes in the garage. Evan saying mom's upset after she used my miscarriage like a weapon. And the almost disappeared. No, I said. I'm choosing myself over people who only love me when I'm useful. His face hardened. You'll regret this. I nodded. Maybe, but I already regret staying quiet. He walked out. The door closed behind him. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Then my mother came around the table and wrapped her arms around me. I did not cry until then. Not because I was weak, because I was finally safe enough to. My father started clearing plates like we had simply finished dinner. Aunt Linda picked up the wine glasses. My mother rubbed my back. And I stood in my own dining room, surrounded by the wreckage of a holiday feeling lighter than I had in years. Later that night, after everyone left, I walked through the house, room by room. The guest room still smelled faintly like Patty's perfume. I stripped the floral quilt off the bed and shoved it into a trash bag. In the garage, I found 6 boxes with her name written in black marker. Kitchen. Winter clothes. Pictures. Important. Bathroom. Christmas. Christmas. She had planned to be there by Christmas. I sat on the concrete floor and stared at those boxes for a long time. Then I called Evan. He answered on the first ring. His voice was cold. What? Your mother's boxes are in my garage. They need to be picked up tomorrow by noon. He laughed bitterly. My mom is devastated. Then she'll want her things. You're heartless. No, I said. I'm finished. I hung up. The next morning, I woke to the family fallout. Patty posted on Facebook before 7 a.m. Some people have beautiful homes and empty souls. Praying for my son as he learns painful truths about marriage. Marissa posted an Instagram story from Patty's apartment. A selfie with red eyes and text over her face. When you realize your brother married someone who hates your family. Evan texted me, I hope your house keeps you warm. I stared at that one for a while. Then I wrote back, it already does. And I blocked him for the day. Not forever. There were practical things to handle, but I needed 24 hours without being punished for protecting myself. My parents came over at 10. My father brought his tool bag. My mother brought coffee. Together, we carried Patty's boxes onto the porch. Not thrown, not damaged, just removed. My father replaced the smart lock with a traditional deadbolt. Apps are nice, he muttered until fools get passwords. My mother cleaned the guest room windows. I washed the bedding twice. At noon, Evan arrived with a borrowed pickup truck. Patty was not with him. Marissa was. Of course she was. She stayed in the passenger seat filming through the windshield until my mother walked over and tapped on the glass. Marissa lowered the phone. My mother smiled sweetly. Record one more second of my daughter's house, and I'll make sure your followers see what real family looks like. Marissa put the phone down. Evan loaded the boxes without speaking. When he reached the last one labeled Christmas, he looked at me. You're really doing this. I stood on the porch with my arms folded. I already did it. He shook his head. You changed. I said no. I stopped translating disrespect into family. He looked like he wanted to say more. Then my father stepped onto the porch beside me. Evan closed the tailgate. They drove away. And for the first time in months, every item inside my house belonged there. The months that followed were not simple. People love to pretend that setting a boundary is one clean moment. One speech, one slammed door, one powerful song playing in the background. It is not. It is paperwork. It is changing passwords. It is separating phone plans. It is returning wedding photos to a box because the person beside you in them became someone you cannot recognize. It is waking up at 2 a.m., wondering if you were too harsh. It is rereading old texts so you remember you were not. Evan stayed at Patty's apartment. At first, he told mutual friends he was giving me space. Then he told them I was having control issues. Then he told them my parents had poisoned me. That one almost made me laugh. My parents had barely said anything. They simply stood beside the truth and let it speak. A few people believed him. Most did not know what to believe. That is how family drama works. The truth is usually less entertaining than the lie. The lie has tears, music, and Facebook captions. The truth has dates, bank statements, and a woman quietly changing her locks. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Evan asked to meet. I agreed to a coffee shop. Public. No memories on the walls. He looked tired when he walked in. For one foolish second, my heart softened. Then he sat down and said, Are you done punishing me? And the softness evaporated. I said, I'm not punishing you. He leaned forward. You kicked me out. I removed you from a house you were trying to hand over to people who disrespected me. His jaw tightened. Mom had nowhere else. She had an apartment. She couldn't afford the increase. Then you could have helped her find somewhere affordable. She didn't want senior housing. I looked at him. Of course she didn't. She wanted my house. He looked away. That was the closest he ever came to admitting it. I asked, Did you know Marissa was filming in my bedroom? He rubbed his eyes. Natalie, why are we still talking about TikToks? Because it was my bedroom. It's not like she stole anything. She stole privacy. You all did. He sighed like I was exhausting him. What do you want me to say? That question told me everything. He didn't have remorse. He wanted the password to ending the conversation. I stood. I want you to say nothing. I want you to listen. I am not coming back to that marriage. You can arrange a time to collect the rest of your things. After that, communication goes through email. He stared at me. You're divorcing me over my mother. No, I said. I'm divorcing you because when your mother hurt me, you handed her a key. He did not follow me when I left. By spring, the house felt like mine again. Not because Evan was gone. Because I was no longer waiting for someone to explain why I should not feel what I felt. I painted the guest room sage green. I donated the extra furniture Patty had picked out. I turned the room into a reading room with a soft chair, bookshelves, and a small desk by the window. Marissa unfollowed me, then followed me again from a private account. Then unfollowed me when I posted a picture of the porch swing with the caption, Quiet weekends are underrated. Patty sent one handwritten letter. It was 4 pages long. She said she had loved me like a daughter. She said she was hurt beyond words. She said widows are often misunderstood. She said someday I would learn that houses are just things and family is forever. At the end, she wrote, "I forgive you." I put the letter back in the envelope and wrote across the front, "No response needed." Then I placed it in a drawer with the screenshots. Not because I wanted to live in the past, because sometimes healing requires an archive. When people spend years teaching you to doubt yourself, evidence becomes a kindness. In June, I ran into Aunt Linda at the grocery store. She was buying peaches. She asked if I was okay. I said most days. She nodded. Good. Most days is honest. Then she told me Patty had moved in with Marissa for 6 weeks and moved out after they fought over closet space. I laughed before I could stop myself. Aunt Linda smiled. Funny how everyone wants a village until they have to be the village. That stayed with me, because that was the truth of Evan's family. They loved the word family when it meant access. They hated it when it meant accountability. That summer, I hosted my parents for dinner. Nothing fancy. Grilled chicken, corn, tomatoes from the farmer's market. We ate on the back patio under string lights Evan had always said looked too Pinterest, which is why I had put up twice as many. My father looked around and said, "Feels peaceful here." My mother smiled. It always should have. I thought that would make me sad. Instead, it made me determined. Because a home is not just walls. It is the place where your nervous system learns whether it is allowed to rest. For years, mine had been listening for footsteps, for door codes, for Patty's voice in the hallway, for Marissa laughing in a room she had not been invited into, for Evan saying, "Can we not make this a thing?" Now the house had normal sounds. The dishwasher, the wind in the maple tree, my own music while I cooked, my mother laughing at the patio table, my father asking if the porch railing needed tightening. Peace did not arrive like fireworks. It arrived like quiet. 1 year after that Thanksgiving, I hosted dinner again. Not for Evan's family. Not for anyone who needed a performance. Just my parents, Aunt Linda, 2 friends from work, and a neighbor named Carol whose adult sons live in Oregon and never remember to book flights before prices get ridiculous. I made turkey mashed potatoes cranberry sauce and my mother's sweet potato casserole with pecans on top. The table was smaller. The room was warmer. Before we ate, my father raised his glass. I tensed out of habit. He noticed. He lowered the glass. "May I?" That almost broke me. "May I?" 2 words Evan had never understood. I nodded. My father said, "I'm thankful my daughter knows what's hers." That was it. No speech. No performance. No pressure. Just truth. We ate. We laughed. Nobody filmed. Nobody cried for attention. Nobody announced a life decision on my behalf. After dinner, while everyone else argued gently about whether pumpkin pie needs whipped cream, I stepped onto the porch. The maple tree had dropped most of its leaves. The air smelled like smoke from someone's fireplace. I stood there, thinking about the woman I had been at the previous Thanksgiving table, smiling while my husband tried to give away my peace, waiting for him to finish, holding a folder under my hand like a lifeline. I wish I could go back and hug her. I would tell her she was not cold. She was not selfish. She was not hard to love. She was simply standing at the edge of a life where love had become access, and she finally chose to close the door. Evan and I are divorced now. He still lives across town. I heard through Aunt Linda that Patty moved into a smaller apartment near her church. Marissa is still posting inspirational quotes about negative energy. I do not check often. My house is still mine. The deed is still in my name. The red maple still turns gold every October. The guest room is still sage green. And every time I unlock my front door, I feel something I did not know I had been missing. Ownership. Not just of the house. Of myself. Here is what I learned. Some people do not steal from you all at once. They start with a mug moved to a different cabinet, a sweater borrowed without asking, a guest room drawer, a door code, a box in the garage, a bill from the joint account, a sentence like, "Don't be selfish," a toast at Thanksgiving. And if you are not careful, they will make the takeover look like family. But family is not measured by how much of yourself you surrender. Family is measured by whether your no is still respected after it disappoints someone. My parents did not give me a house so I could feel superior. They gave me a place to stand. And when the people around me tried to convince me standing there was cruelty, I finally understood what my father meant all those years ago. Marriage can be love. A house can be shelter. But your self-worth has to be yours before you share anything with anyone. Because if you do not know what belongs to you, someone else will rename it as theirs. That Thanksgiving, my husband raised a glass and announced his mother was moving into my home. He expected obedience. He expected embarrassment to keep me quiet. He expected me to confuse peacekeeping with love. Instead, I stood up. I said no, and I took my house back before they ever got the chance to call it theirs. So tell me honestly, if your spouse announced at Thanksgiving that their parent was moving into your house without asking you, first, would you shut it down right there at the table or wait until everyone left?